Before we begin, I want to share a resource that can make your divorce process far easier and much less stressful. It's Hello Divorce. Hello Divorce gives you a guided, step-by-step path through your divorce with clear instructions, simple online tools, and support from real legal and coaching professionals when you need it. You get help with paperwork, access to affordable legal advice, and a process that is designed to save you money, reduce conflict, and keep you informed every step of the way. They've created a special page just for Divorce and Beyond listeners. Visit hellodivorce.com/Susan to explore their plans, pricing, and resources so you can see exactly what fits your situation. If you want a clearer, calmer, more empowered way to move through your divorce, start at hellodivorce.com/Susan.
Coming up on today's episode of the Divorce and Beyond podcast.
I tell people that their molecules are realigning. And really, like, you're kind of falling apart first, like you don't quite know who you are. Your identity is changing. Married, unmarried, not married, in a partnership, or single mom or dad. So when your molecules realign, there's this uncomfortable space in between before you establish what's next of like, what is this? Like, I don't know this place. And it's scary for people.
Hello, and welcome to the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host. As a top divorce attorney and family law mediator for 30 years, I know what you need to know to get through your divorce, and most importantly, how to move beyond it to thrive and transition to your new future. My experts and I are here to give you the insider view into the process, so listen in for the wisdom and expert information you need on your journey through divorce and beyond.
Listeners, if you're in the middle of divorce and you feel stressed, scared, and overwhelmed, or even like you're coming apart at the seams, you are not alone. And more importantly, there is nothing wrong with you. Divorce hits your life, your nervous system, and your sense of safety harder than almost anything else you will ever experience. And that's why today we're going to talk about why divorce feels so emotionally destabilizing, why your reactions feel so big, and how you can ground yourself again, even in the middle of chaos. And I have two wonderful guests with me to guide you. Dr. Beth Karassik is a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist who has spent years helping individuals and families navigate divorce, separation, and major life transitions. She brings both deep expertise and lived experience to this conversation, and she has a remarkable ability to explain what happens to your brain and body when everything feels out of control. Louise Zito has been a family mediator and collaborative divorce leader for more than 30 years. She trains professionals across the country, leads retreats, and has supported thousands of families through conflict. She knows the emotional landscape of divorce from the inside out, and she knows exactly where people get stuck. Together, Beth and Louise are here to help you understand why divorce triggers fear, confusion, and emotional flooding, how stress affects your decisions, communication, and co-parenting, and the simple science-based tools you can use today to stay centered, calmer, and more in control. And later in the episode, we're going to talk about something you may never have considered: the emotional toll divorce takes on the professionals who support you, and how their regulation and well-being directly impacts your experience and outcomes. This is one of those conversations that will help you breathe easier, think more clearly, and move through the hardest moments of divorce with more stability and strength. So let's dive in. Well, Beth and Louise, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about some of the trauma and the emotional difficulty that, and I think this will be interesting for people, that everyone involved in the divorce process goes through. And my listeners will understand more of that as we dive in and go into this. But thank you, so much for joining me. This is going to be a great conversation. It's interesting. I was just doing that episode, that Oprah episode, and I loved the fact that Oprah had so many people in the audience who were talking about their divorce experience. And by and large, everyone who was talking about it, and especially the woman who had just filed for divorce, the trauma in that room. We were in this huge taping room with 100 plus people in the audience and all this. The trauma and the emotion that you could feel in that room was just, it was, you could feel it. And, that's, I think, for people, they just don't understand as they go into it just how overwhelming divorce really is. And by that, I do mean emotionally. Why is it? We go through a lot in life today. Why is divorce just especially putting us, on that high level of emotion scale?
Maybe I can start with that. And again, thanks for having us. It's great to be able to get into some of these pieces in the conversation, Susan. Well, why is it? I mean, we're wired for survival, and our brains want to take care of us. And we have, I'm sure probably almost everybody listening right now has heard about, the stress response, fight, flight, freeze. So there's just that basic, like, my life is totally changing. Even for people who are interested or wanted the divorce, life is totally changing. Like, where the bank accounts are, where I'm going to live, like how much money I'm going to have. So there's just so much, if not fear, there's a lot of fear often for people, but just sadness, upset, change. I mean, I tell people that their molecules are realigning. And really, like, you're kind of falling apart first, like you don't quite know who you are. Your identity is changing. Married, unmarried, not married, in a partnership, or single mom or dad. So when your molecules realign, there's this uncomfortable space in between before you establish what's next of like, what is this? Like, I don't know this place. And it's scary for people. And so we have all kinds of reactions that show up in all different ways, emotionally and physically. And it takes a while. I think people also, I've been divorced myself. And, about a year later, it's like, okay, life's looking okay and it's going all right. And then I realized 3 years later, like, oh, no, like it took 3 years. I think now I'm feeling solid on my feet. So yeah, it's a process. It's really an evolution of a new life, a new beginning.
Yeah, I think it's also particularly difficult when during the marriage, one person took care of the kids' needs mainly, and one person took care of the finances mainly. And now all of a sudden, the person who has the finances down has to learn how to be a caretaker. And the person who has the kids' routine down and knows how to solace them and give them care now has to learn about finance. So it's also learning. It's like you're saying, it's change, it's learning new things. I actually think our clients are incredibly brave to come into a room and have to discuss all of this with strangers. I mean, wow, they need to give themselves some credit, I think, and everybody needs to realize how difficult this process is.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about it being overwhelming, that's pretty much what it feels like, right? You suddenly, I've heard you both describing, and I've been there myself and gone through this with, hundreds and hundreds of clients. You're describing a process that no one really understands until you're in it, because I love the molecules are being rearranged, because it's your inner molecules and the outer molecules of your entire life. I always call it divorce limbo. You just described it, Beth, right? That You don't know where you're going to end up. Are you going to be able to keep the house? Do you have to sell the house? Are the kids going to be with you on Monday? Are they going to be with you on Tuesday? Do you need to get a job? Do you need to get a different job? I mean, everything is up in the air. And it's not just for a day. It's not just for a week. It's not just for a few months. It can be for years. And, then add in the fact that we're living in a world that is increasingly conflictual, I think, these days. And increasingly, I've done a few other episodes, as I mentioned to you, about just how hard financially it is to get divorced right now. Right? We have a lot of uncertainty and volatility in our economy and around things like health insurance and Medicaid and student loans and all of that. Does that add to this level of stress that people are feeling in trauma?
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, all varying degrees of how is the social fabric, how are people experiencing it and all the changes and all of the strains of it. And certainly there's all those concrete fears and changes, like what's the bottom line, like the balance in the bank. And then there's the emotional factors. And even I think people often also don't acknowledge enough the impact of the losses, like the grieving that's going on, the grief. So really, I mean, I've never stopped to try to count like the different threads that go into this, but they're really everything.
This is an important conversation, and I've been trying to generate it for years now, that we can't ignore what's going on socially and culturally, politically, historically. It has impacts on all of us. We're all human, and we're all affected by this. And then when we have this incredibly traumatic, naturally traumatic event in our lives, a divorce, a parting of the ways, under the constraints of all this chaos, people come in, naturally they're afraid. Naturally they're positional. I mean, it's just, we don't really talk about other ways that people can protect themselves. We're so used to labels and forms and fitting into a certain structure. And in fact, we could really take a deep look at these emotions and talk about how people can recognize them and how they can make things better. I'm not talking about like some grand response or answer or magic, answer at the end, but just as part of the process, these sometimes very little things can really make a difference.
Yeah, I think.
And make things a little easier. Yeah.
There's so much that comes into this. And there's also, from that perspective, as we're talking about this, I think that there's also something that, people are very focused on the effect on themselves, which makes perfect sense, right? You're going through divorce. You're very, very focused on what's happening and the change that's happening in your world. But people do forget that their spouse is also going through the same, maybe not the same changes. I shouldn't say that, because I think you did a very good job of explaining one spouse who dealt with the financial is now learning an entirely new skill set of learning how to care and comfort the children and vice versa. There's all these different things. But that huge impact of that significant change, then you layer on just all of the socioeconomic issues, especially that are going on right now, that even make it for some people that maybe they can't get divorced because, I've run into a lot more of that lately, or where they have to take into consideration being very creative in the divorce process because of what's going on in our external environment. And that has to layer on an even higher level of stress and trauma for everyone.
Why don't we talk about, Beth, give us some tips on what it looks like? How do we know we're in trouble?
I think that's such so important for us to understand that everybody's going through something. But very often, I think the other thing that we've noticed is people don't even really know the level of stress that they're under. They're in the fight or flight. They are in one foot in front of the other. How do people even know that they're being flooded, that they are in that moment of trauma and fear? What does that feel like? What does it look like for people?
Yeah, that's a big question because people have such different, there's a variety of ways of coping with fear and anger and upset and stress. So it can look all different ways. And for some people, it's very heightened and they're walking around scared and nervous and upset and irritable. People can be irritable, feel anxiety, lose sleep, not sleep. I'm sure many people listening, losing sleep, running through their minds on all the different things that could be going on.
The 2 a.m., what do I do? What's going to happen?
Right, sure. And so some people are that like heightened emotionality and shaking, shaking through the whole thing. And others are more, contained or shut down. I mean, obviously there can be more extreme, like people become very, depressed or real anxiety that interferes in life. But even just day-to-day reactions can range from being sort of just shut down and sad and flat and trying to ignore everything or just not feel it, or really heightened reactions. So, and obviously the sadness and anxiety are maybe the most common things. There's, anger, upset. I mean, it depends also on what's gone on. Has there been a betrayal? Is there someone else involved? Like, there's so many versions of what people could be going through at this time.
I think of the people who, and we've had them, I suspect you've both had them as well. I call them the perfect client. And that's the one who thinks that they can micromanage the divorce into being okay or everything, but because they fill out their paperwork perfectly in 5 minutes and you tell them to get a form and they get it back to you. So I see those people who, try to deal, I think, with the stress by micromanaging it. I've seen people come down with a lot of health issues, like actual physical health issues that I think are related to the stress of what they're going through.
Absolutely. People not eating or eating too much. I mean, all of those things, it just can manifest in so many different ways. I think, which is why it's so important to be able to take a look inside and recognize, what's going on for me? What has happened to me since I learned of the divorce, whether I initiated it, I might have been thinking about it for years, but boy, when it starts, it looks totally different. I mean, you just can't envision it until you're in it, right? And it's different for everybody. And that's the other thing is there is no cookie cutter divorce. It's different for everyone. Everyone's experience is different. And like Beth was saying, how they react emotionally to that experience is different. And then, how can we help them deal with all that excess emotion? Well, recognize it first. And then, what can we do to help them live with it, adapt to it, turn it around, and not just our clients, but ourselves, right? We have to look at ourselves too.
Well, and we talked about the effect or the kind of add-on effect or underlying effect of the times we're living in and the environment and social factors and political factors. But there's also each person's background. Like some people, do they have a vulnerability or already have struggled some with, depression or anxiety, or do they have a history of some sort of trauma or abuse where a divorce really generates all of that past upset? So there's like layers that can happen based on people's pasts as well. I mean, add-on layers kind of in terms of...
Right. Well, we don't get divorced in a vacuum, right? We get divorced in the container of our entire life, and it's one more thing. And often, we talked about the illness just a second ago, but there's, rarely does a divorce happen in a vacuum of divorce is the only thing going on either, right? People's lives move forward in the year or two it can take to get divorced. Their children's lives move forward. Sometimes in good ways, sometimes other things are happening. It's not just illness. It can be the financial struggles that people are having today. People are losing jobs. We have an unstable job market these days. Housing market is unstable. They might lose their housing and not be able to find housing that's commensurate, keep their kids on their school district. I mean, it is that ongoing, we were talking before we started taping about that ongoing existential trauma. It can be one more thing day after day on top of all the many traumas. So, Louise, you mentioned helping people, recognizing that you're going through trauma, because I think there's a difference between divorce is traumatic, therefore, I'm being traumatized here, but really understanding the effect that it's having on you. That's where you start to have that awareness of how trauma is affecting you. But so what do? You can't stop the divorce. The divorce is happening. It's going to continue, and it's probably going to drag out, unfortunately, as we know, although there are things you can do to move it forward. So how can you help yourself as you're feeling stressed during the divorce?
We all know that the divorce is inevitable, right? But sometimes maybe there can be a pause. And I think it's important, that recognition that two people are coming into the room, they're not in the same place. So maybe someone has to learn how to slow down to accommodate that and be patient. But, all of that really comes from like a heightened sense of self-awareness. And if you're stressed, and you recognize that you're stressed, there's so many things that you can do. And some of them are just, really easy. I mean, you can pause throughout the day, just take breaks and just take 3 deep breaths, right? Just a breath in and a breath out. Just do that 3 times and you'll start to feel calm. And look around and notice things. Notice where you are. Notice what you hear. Notice what you see. It's just this pause. A pause is so important for many, many reasons. And there's self-compassion techniques that can easily be done. I was talking to Beth before and I said, "Oh, Beth, during this taping, do the hand on the heart thing." Because it's really wonderful. She can explain that better than I can.
All right. So first of all, I think it's great. Louise is pointing to how really some very brief, easy things to do can make a big difference. I know years ago when I used to teach like a stress management course, like maybe it was 6 or 10 sessions long. And the first one was about deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. And then it got more complex and involved your body and tensing and all that. And people would always come back and say just that deep breathing was the most important or the most effective thing. And what Louise is talking about now is in the world of mindful self-compassion, which has a number of different practices and exercises to do. It's actually been found, there is research that when a person takes, put each hand on top of, one hand on top of the other and place it on your chest or on your heart. And for some people, they might find themselves resisting that a little bit, but 20 seconds of having your hands on your heart for a month, like if you do this practice 20 seconds a day, has been found to make a difference in blood pressure, in people's self-report of their comfort and peace of mind. So there's a physiological and psychological or emotional benefit from very simple things that provide some just basic comfort. So that, deep breathing, there's this hands on your heart. For some people, crossing your arms, like where you're like arms crossed, but each of your palms are almost like you're giving yourself a hug. I mean, hugs, there's plenty of research on that. Like physical hugs have an impact on people's physical, like things you can measure in terms of our physiological functioning.
I love the hands on the heart. I love the hugging yourself. And I have to tell you, I remember I was going to a therapist, this is many years ago, and I was going through a stressful time. It happens to be when I was a divorce litigator. Maybe that had something to do with it, because I was very stressed in that time in my life. We'll talk more about that in a minute, everyone. But I remember this was very impactful because she hooked me up to a biofeedback machine and had me take 3 deep breaths. This is the first thing I thought of when you said it, Louise. And we watched my heart rate and all of the sensors in the seconds of time. Probably takes 20 seconds to take 3 deep breaths as well, right? And we watched the effectiveness. And I went from like a level of stress that was way up here to wait. She said she'd never seen anybody react so well to 3 deep breaths. And so to this day, if I'm feeling stress in my life, 3 deep breaths are the thing. And I've done that in mediation sessions with clients. If I'm starting to feel stressed because of what's going on in the room, I will often pause and ask the clients, to everyone, why don't we all, take a pause here? So I think that that's so important for people to understand, because there's this out of control feeling that you have when you are feeling stressed and traumatized. And what you're talking about here are such simple ways where you have control. Let's take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. The second half of this conversation is where things really come together. We're diving into the practical tools you can use to calm your body, quiet your mind, and get through the toughest moments of divorce with more clarity and control. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Listeners, as a bit of a product junkie myself, I am so excited to announce that we have partnered with Bluemercury, which is your one-stop destination for luxury skincare, makeup, hair care, fragrance, and more, all thoughtfully curated and backed by their expert service. And because you are listening today, Bluemercury is offering 15% off your first order when you use the special link in our show notes. It's their way of saying thanks for being a part of the Divorce and Beyond family. So just click the link in the show notes, shop your favorites, and enjoy the 15% discount that will be automatically applied to that first purchase. That's 15% off your first order at bluemercury.com. Check your show notes to claim it now.
The only thing you can control, really. Okay, how fast your breathing is going, or where do I let my thoughts go? We can't control really that first thought that pops in our head, but where we take it, like where we allow ourselves to then follow it, we have control over that. Just yesterday, it's just occurring to me that people have smartwatches. Just yesterday, I was having a upsetting conversation with my partner, and I happened to look, my what's it called? My heart rate. It's usually pretty low, like 68 or 70. And I happened to look at my watch and it was at 90. And I was like, my heart rate is at 90 because of this conversation. Like what? And so it's just occurring to me that that's really a tool. People can use that, even practice the 3 breaths and take a look. You will see the difference. Okay, the number goes lower, but really that has a very important impact on physical well-being, besides emotional well-being.
And we can set reminders to ourselves, right? I had years ago, my acupuncturist used to email me, Louise, take 3 deep breaths and put your feet on the ground. And you can put those little reminders in your calendar, on your smartwatch, on your smartphone, right? And it doesn't take a lot of time to do this, but really the results are just great.
When you're feeling really scattered, you can really do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 reset. Look around. What are 5 things that you're seeing? Then, okay, what are 4 things that you can feel? They're right there in front of you. 3 things you can hear. 2 things, can you smell? Can you smell 2 different smells? Or 1 thing you can taste. And you'll notice as you're doing that, any of us will find that our breath slows down, our mind kind of softens, and we get just present to ourselves in the moment, not the worries about what's going to happen in the future, or the upset about what just happened, what he or she said or did.
These are so great. You know what, listeners? What I'm going to do is take all of these and put them into a downloadable worksheet for you all. So go to the show notes and you'll be able to download all these fantastic tips that Beth and Louise have shared. I truly love these because they are things that are so actionable in any moment that you need them. So we're going to take this part of the episode and I will put it into just a quick reference. You guys can download it and then go get that smartwatch, get your iPad, set your phone to give you the little reminders. These are fantastic. And I remember the impact that those 3 deep breaths, it was like life before the three deep breaths for me and life after the three deep breaths for me, because it made that significant an impact. I remember it that distinctly. Could I tell you anything else specifically that happened in the years that I saw that therapist? Probably not, but I remember that one session. You don't know what impact even the smallest thing can have on you. You know, you've mentioned the get your feet on the ground. I know that when I had Elizabeth Cohen on, Dr. Elizabeth Cohen, she would talk about, I live in Michigan, so don't go do this in the winter, but she would talk about taking your shoes off and go getting your feet in the grass, you know, and taking a little walk around just to feel your feet in the grass and the warmth of the ground through your feet, or doing those things. There's so many different ways in quick moments that you can help yourself. But I don't want to lose something that I sort of introduced here, because this is really where you ladies shine, and where I think many of my listeners have probably never had their minds go. And that is that everyone in the divorce process is going through this stress and levels of trauma. And by that, I don't mean just the couple getting divorced and their family, their children. Absolutely. And all of the tips that you just gave, by the way, can help your children if they're feeling stressed. You can help them take 3 deep breaths or do the grounding exercises. But what I want people to realize, and something I hadn't realized so much at that time when I was going to that therapist for my stress levels, was that it's also the professionals in the room. And you ladies are professionals in the room, so you certainly know this well, but you also now work with professionals in the divorce process to help them, which I think is a very significant thing. One, I think it helps people going through divorce to realize that this trauma and the stress level just extends to everyone in the room. But also that there are things that everyone can do, and finding professionals who are also grounded in these techniques, who have gone through this sort of finding support for themselves as well, is helpful to the clients. It trickles down to the clients. So tell us a little bit about how divorce and the divorce process and working with divorcing couples brings stress into the life of the professionals. It's not just having deadlines that we have to file papers by, etc. It's much more complex than that, right?
Yeah. I mean, family law professionals really care about what's happening, what their clients are going through. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have said only family law, but we're here talking about divorce. The people working with people who are listening, it really matters to them what people are going through. And they're particularly, I think anybody becoming a mental health professional or financial professional, an attorney, really care about doing something, like fixing the problem. So that's the first, I guess, just wanting to put that out there, that to understand that it's not just the work of it and the business of it, but just a real caring, like in the whole world of family law and people who are divorcing.
It matters, right? It matters that we can help people, and it's a very difficult space to actually help people in, because there's often no good answer for all of the things that are coming up. And so sometimes it's just finding the best possible answer, right? So that can be very stressful.
I think that those of us in the family law profession, bringing in everybody, bringing in mental health professionals and the financial specialists, I think we go into family law because we care and because we want to help people. I think what happens over time is that there becomes this imbalance. So we're so focused on helping people that we don't leave our worries and our thoughts in the office. We take them home with us. So, getting back to what we were talking about before I got involved, or before I remembered things that I used to do, like meditation, I would be waking up at 2:00 in the morning thinking about my clients. I would be staying at the office really late and missing dinner. That's so common. It's just such a common thing to do. And then things get out of control and you lose sight of it. And all of a sudden, your whole mindset is in your work experience, and you're missing things in your personal life. And in the long run, that's not good for you or your clients, because you're also in the negotiation room thinking, oh my God, I forgot to stop at the store and pick this up, or I forgot to take my daughter to her doctor's appointment. I mean, all of these things happen, right? When I was litigating, I actually scheduled a trial when I was going to be away on my honeymoon. So that's how caught up we get, right? It's like, who are we? Where's the person? And, how do we help ourselves and be more present for our clients? Because I'm telling you from personal experience, when I became more aware of myself and took better care of myself, I was better for my clients because I was able to be totally present for them when I was with them, whether it was a courtroom or mediation room, a collaborative divorce team meeting. I was just so much more present. So it's very important for us to take a look at our own emotions, realize that we do suffer vicarious trauma, that we do take the enormous pressures and problems and anxiety that we're experiencing with our clients into ourselves and manifest some of those same symptoms.
It's a little ironic almost that as divorce professionals, we are always telling our clients that self-care is absolutely imperative during this process. Yet I was probably the least aware of my own self-care during the heyday of my litigation days. I was so busy, and Louise, you say that about, schedule. I didn't schedule during my honeymoon, but I did schedule a trial during a wonderful cruise that my husband had scheduled, and he ended up taking my stepdaughter, and I stayed back home alone to get through the trial with my client. Those are the things, and the trickle down of that just brings more stress. And I don't say that, that was a choice that was made, but there is irony in this fact that we are always telling our clients that they need to take care of themselves. And we don't do it for ourselves, which I think is why it's so fantastic that you ladies are doing work with professionals specifically, which has that trickle down, as you just said, Louise, down to being able to be a better professional for your clients. So it's really systemic in the entire thing. Can you tell us more about what the work that you do with professionals?
Well, first of all, it started with just our, consultations, the kinds of conversations we had with collaborative teams that we worked on, and sharing and really making a point of generating conversations for people to acknowledge and really see for themselves. And then at one point, Louise and I, we formed a partnership. We call ourselves Calma Collective. And we formed this partnership to really put all of this together into like a retreat setting so that the professionals can leave the day-to-day, kind of the hamster wheel and the concerns and what matters to them being at home, both home and work at home, and be able to have some really time separate from that allows for that tuning in to really be clear on what's going on for them. And so for us to provide the space for people the professionals to really connect to themselves, their purpose, why they chose to go into this work and being of service to people in this way, in this time in their lives, and to have strength in the community for people, because community makes such a difference in support for anybody going through anything. And so, yeah, and really have people, just get back to what really matters to them and bringing that kind of joy and that focus back into their lives and their work at home.
It's almost like a Control-Alt-Delete, right? Or a hard reset, because you're with a retreat, you're almost, not forcing, because that's not the right phrase for it, but you're putting people into a both physical and mental space where they can, in a shorter period of time, do that reset that they need. And you're doing that for professionals. Louise, can you tell us, because this is your very first retreat that's coming up, tell us more about the retreat that you have for divorce professionals.
Okay. Well, it's in Vieques, Puerto Rico. I don't
Nice.
know if you've ever been there,
I
Susan, but it's a
have.
beautiful place.
Yes.
Very beautiful place. And we have an entire guest house, so there will be no other people there, just us. It's very private. It's very safe. It's really charming. There's lots of lovely little places where you can be alone and self-reflect, and also really nice spaces to do the work. So the exercises and the practices and techniques that we'll be teaching will be mainly at the guest house, but also we have trips that align with this looking deep and looking in. So we have a trip planned to the bioluminescent bay, which is the brightest one in the world. I love Puerto Rico. I love the importance that people here place on nature and the environment and conversation and communication and relationships. They're all primary. And it's one of the reasons we're having it there, so that you can have these experiences and have the freedom and time to do this kind of work. We also have an excursion to the saber tree. I just love the saber tree. I mean, if you can't think, if you ever thought it's not possible to be hugged by a tree, I'm telling you, you can feel that experience when you go to the saber tree.
Yeah.
And of course, the tree will let you hug, instead of you hugging yourself, you can go get hugged by the tree. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this first one, we're really focused on bringing and teaching people the practices of mindful self-compassion and mindfulness-based stress reduction, which, is exactly that, just absolute, empirically based practices that really make a difference in how people experience the stressors and the things going on in their lives. To have some freedom and ease.
I can tell you, I wish there had been something like this back when I, instead of going to the therapist for years to try and work through that, it wasn't sufficient to bring down the stress levels at the time. But something like this sounds like a week away, a week of being able to focus. And I love that it's not just a focus on yourself. You're really focusing on, yes, managing the stress, but also connecting with that community, which we know is so powerful. And it strikes me that this is an opportunity, again, to sort of hit that reset and find, again, your passion for what it is that we all do.
Right.
Which sounds so appealing.
I was reading a survey that the travel industry did recently about the importance of travel and impact on people. 6,000 people were interviewed, and 60% of them said modern life does not allow for true rest. It's hard to rest when you're always on. So it's an opportunity to be off in a lovely setting.
It sounds lovely. Who doesn't want to flip that switch? Plus, you have, guided exercises and moments. And, I'll just point out for the listeners who are going through divorce, your retreat is for divorce professionals. So those professionals out there listening, we will, of course, have information in the show notes for you on the retreat. But for those of you who are going through divorce, recognize that setting even if it were just a day away, where you were able to take a day off, to what Louise just said, we don't get to rest. And certainly as you're going through divorce and you're responsible for taking care of your children in that moment and trying to figure out and get the papers together for your financial accountant and for your divorce attorney and doing all those things, maybe you can just build in one day or an hour or some time where you're able to focus on yourself and just rest. There's something very powerful about that as well.
Yeah, there's research or studies that when it's purposeful time away, like you choose it or plan it, purposeful time away actually decreases stress hormones. It improves sleep quality. People sleep better. And they also have reported basically having improved mood and clarity in thinking. Just really almost any purposeful time away.
So you know what? Let's go back to those iPhones, pull up your calendar and block off some time that is, call it that, purposeful time away. I like that name.
PTA.
So,
PTA, but not school. But not school.
Yep, instead of PTO, get your PTA, folks. Well, and one last thing before we go, because I want to make sure we do not forget it. First, date and how to sign up for your retreat, which of course we will have in the show notes, but also you have a special offer for the divorce professionals who are listening who are interested in attending the retreat.
So the dates are March 15th through 20th. And we have a special offer for people who have listened to this show and want to take advantage of it. Well, we will give you early bird pricing, which is a $500 value. So early bird is basically over, but we're reopening it for Susan's friends and colleagues. And the code word is ALIVE, ALIVE.
Wonderful. So we will have a link for you all. It'll be in the show notes, as always, with all the information about the retreat, about Calma Collective, about how you can reach out to Louise and Beth, and we'll have the code ALIVE there for you to remind you. So just go check out the show notes, everyone. Any last words you ladies would like to share with the listeners out there?
I'll say just thank you. I mean, not just for having us, but for bringing voices, bringing these conversations to people who are going through this transitional time in their lives, right? So I know that I'm sure it makes a difference for people. I know that it would have if I had been listening when I was going through it. So yeah, just really acknowledge you for doing that.
Thank you. It goes back to that. We always want to help people, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Louise?
It's really important to be able to have someone that you can talk to. Someone who's really going to listen is really what I want to say. So choose the people you talk to carefully. And if you find someone who really is a good listener, then that's a gift, and take advantage of it.
Yeah. Sometimes that can be your therapist, folks, I will say.
Right.
Or your divorce coach. Sometimes it's your best friend. Sometimes it's your mom, and we've got entire episodes on, being careful about who you get your advice from during your divorce as well, because as well-meaning as all people are, you have to be careful about where you get your advice. But we have two fantastic sources of advice right here in the two of you, and I thank you so much. I'm very excited about the simple list that you have created here for people of what they can do in a moment, and putting aside their time, a time away, so that they are able, their PTA, so that they're able to take a benefit from having a little break and rest. So thank you so much, ladies, and I wish you a wonderful retreat to you and all of your attendees. What a wonderful thing that you are doing for our profession and for those who are going through divorce, because refreshed professionals are going to be even better professionals for the clients they serve. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, I want to highlight a few of the golden nuggets from today's conversation with Beth and Louise. First, if you feel overwhelmed, scattered, or emotionally flooded during divorce, it is not a personal failure. It is a normal human response to a destabilizing experience. Second, your nervous system needs support during this time, and even the smallest grounding practices can make a meaningful difference. And finally, you don't have to do this alone. Having the right tools and the right people around you can create a steadier, safer path forward. Thank you so much for joining me and for giving yourself this time today. If this episode resonated, I encourage you to share it with a friend or family member who might also be struggling through the stress of divorce. And as always, there are many more resources, articles, and expert conversations waiting for you at divorceandbeyondpod.com. I'll see you next week, and remember, you absolutely can get through this, and you do not have to do it alone.
Thank you for joining me today on the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I hope you found some information and inspiration to help you on this journey. Please join me every Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new episode. And if you like the show, please take the time to subscribe and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. You can also find more information on the website at divorceandbeyondpod.com, where you'll find links to the YouTube channel, transcripts of the episodes, and other bonus content. So I'll see you next week to help you move through your divorce and beyond.